And so that represents, at least for us, a really good opportunity to refine things a little bit further, help to educate a potential customer on, the reasons why they may want to shift strategy a little bit, and for us to potentially win some new business. So, you don't like to see it because you want to see folks that are operating efficiently.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. Today, we have none other than Ben Zettler. Ben, tell us who you are and what do you do?
Well, first, I appreciate you having me. It's a pleasure to be on. I've been really fortunate over the last 10 years or so to build up an e-commerce and digital marketing agency. Eponymous to my name, Ben Zettler Digital. We are longstanding Shopify and Shopify Plus partners, Klaviyo partners, Meta Business partners. We help e-commerce businesses build websites, scale their marketing, their advertising, as well as their own marketing, email and SMS. And we have a lot of fun doing it.
I love it. So you are the engine behind a lot of people's contacting and their lead flow and all that kind of good stuff then, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we definitely try to be.
Well, most people don't know how to do that stuff. So it's a good problem to try and solve.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we get the fortunate opportunity to work with hundreds of different types of businesses, different sizes of businesses, and to some degree, everybody has some level of need around what it is that we do. So for some clients that we work with, they just need help in building their website and they have their own internal teams to handle anything else. For others, we kind of act as outsourced marketing department where sure, we might be handling some stuff on the website optimization end, but the core focus of what we do for them might be in managing their email campaign messaging, the automations that users are receiving when they're completing certain actions, but then also their customer acquisition efforts through advertising that we might be running on their behalf.
That's awesome. Because, I mean, let's be honest, most companies that are operating in less than, say, $50 million in revenue, they just don't have a full department of people that can fill all those roles, right? I mean, it's a hard thing to do, to understand and be fluent in all parts of a marketing campaign. Would you say?
Absolutely. And not only that, but there's so many different opportunities that are out there, different channels where you could have a certain presence that, for a lot of teams, maybe they have one operator, or they have two or three folks that are sort of handling everything, and they're, somewhat, overworked, we'll call it. The types of businesses that we tend to do fairly well with are, situations where, let's say it's a solo founder or a small founding teams, or even in the case of larger businesses where the e-com dedicated team, the digital marketing dedicated team, there may be, 3 or 4 overworked doers, as I like to call them, folks that are, kind of split in a number of different directions, and they're not necessarily, coming to the table with years of expertise in doing what they're supposed to be doing for brands. And so that's where we can kind of insert really nicely into what they're doing.
And let's be honest, most of those teams that are full of those doers, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a strategy. They're just kind of doing. Is that right?
Exactly. Absolutely. And that's where we can step in very often in helping to provide that guidance and that direction in a lot of cases. And for some where it's a little bit more consultative in nature, where we are literally coaching folks through how to implement certain pieces. But more often than not, we're actually managing the entire process.
That's awesome. So just to be clear, I mean, what you're doing is you are helping people provide that whole marketing arm of their business that they don't have yet, or direction to an arm. Maybe it's a couple fingers on that arm that they might have in play. You're kind of helping provide the strategy, put in play different methods that might work to grow their social impact online. Is that right?
Exactly. So we're helping to build websites. We're helping to optimize those experiences. We're helping to integrate different tools to their websites that may help them, collect information about users, survey folks, create a new function that they didn't otherwise have or couldn't previously achieve. We're helping to run email marketing, run SMS marketing,
Right.
Facebook and Instagram advertising, Google advertising, content writing, content creation. Um, and for most cases, it's e-commerce centric. Though we're fortunate too to
Cool.
have some some other really exciting clients that kind of fall a little bit outside that spectrum.
Right.
But yeah, those are at least very high level the areas where we operate.
And so are you, by saying that, are you qualifying down to like only Shopify store owners? Or are you talking about people with any kind of like a virtual product they're selling? Who's kind of your perfect client? Like which kind of the ones are that you love to take onboarding?
I'd say 99% of the clients that we work with sort of inevitably are on Shopify, or they're thinking about moving to Shopify and they want to be on
Awesome.
Shopify. In a lot of
Awesome.
cases, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're just selling a physical product. They could be selling a digital product, or they could be selling
Right.
nothing at all. They need a place to manage an online portfolio and a great CMS, a great content management system for where to do
Yeah.
that, in our opinion at least, is doing that in Shopify as opposed to doing that on like a WordPress site or something like that.
It
But
is
yeah,
a
to
lot
answer your
more versatile
question,
than people think, isn't it?
yeah, 100%. And to answer your question, I mean, yes, the majority of folks that we work with, they are Shopify merchants selling a product of some kind.
Love it. Love it. So for those of you out there that are selling something on Shopify, it's a huge platform. I mean, a lot of people do get, I would guess most people are only utilizing about maybe like 7-8% of what Shopify can do for their store. What are some common things that you see in a new client that you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be easy? like why, how did you not enable that feature? You know, what are some things that you see as red flags when you first hop in?
It's a great question. I think it varies for a lot of different businesses in terms of what they are doing now and what they could be doing in the relative short-term future, with even
Right.
subtle changes to what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. We have the good fortune of working with merchants of all sizes. So folks that are in, we'll call it complete startup mode. They're
Right.
starting a business out of their parents' basement, like I did 10 years ago.
Right.
And other folks that are, a scaled, 8-figure a year, 9-figure a year e-commerce business that are just trying to
Right.
make things more efficient. And so the problems or issues or opportunities um, span a pretty wide range.
Yeah.
Um, some of the obvious things that we tend to see. Let's just talk more specifics. Like for example, in email marketing, I wrote a LinkedIn post recently about this, of how marketers should remove the phrase batch and blast from their vocabulary. Usually what that translates to is just, you have your email list and you have a message to send about a new product, and then you're just going to go
Right.
and send it to the entire list. And
Right.
there's
Right.
many different reasons why that's ultimately a problem. But I still yet still see that all the time
All the
when
time.
it comes to new clients that we're working with, or potential clients to work with. Um, and yeah, so that that's one, just as again as an
Right.
example of you want to make sure that you're honing your messaging to specific groups of users that are more likely to complete an action and engage with that messaging that you're sending, for the sake
Right.
of reduction of list churn, for deliverability, to make sure that you're reaching user inboxes as opposed to being directed to their spam folders, and
Yes.
also ultimately saving money on those messages that you're sending. So again, one example, but a lot of different things like that, things that require, I'd say, relatively, not easy. I never like to use the word easy, but relatively straightforward tweaks and changes to what they're doing on a day to day,
Yeah.
to help them either save money or make money, or both.
You know, thank you for sharing that. And as you think about your client avatar and you think about the people that you like to work with, is it common for your clients to know exactly who they are working with, or are they pretty shotgun approach? I'm just shooting this thing out there because I got a list of 20,000 emails.
You see the latter pretty often, and
Yeah.
so that represents, at least for us, really good opportunity to refine things a little bit further, help to educate a potential customer on the reasons why they may want to shift strategy a little bit, and for us to potentially win some new business. So, you don't like to see it because you want to see folks that are operating efficiently. But, in the
Right.
context of, for us, a conversation of, hey, we're looking for help. But that's kind of step number one, that a merchant's looking for either help or guidance, or for someone to take the management of a tool off of their plate. And so for us,
Right.
it's an opportunity to, to potentially win a new client at the end of the day.
Running a business, honestly, can leave a lot of founders and operators feeling lonely and isolated. If you have ever felt that way, trust me, I know what it feels like. And there is something you can do about it. You've heard a lot of our guests talk about the fact that being lonely and isolated is one of their biggest challenges in trying to run and scale their business. captainscouncil.com. Go to captainscouncil.com right now and see what we're doing to resolve this problem. We want you to be a strong operator who has solutions and has a way to get around the challenges you're currently facing. What most founders don't understand is that you're not alone. The challenges that you're facing, likely somebody else has already overcome, and they can give you the feedback you need to overcome them. Who better than your peers, other founders, other operators who are joining with you in a small group setting, a global community setting, as well as at our in-person events, to guide you through these challenges that you're facing right now. Don't give up, keep on pushing, but do it with some good advice from your peers. Go check it out at captainscouncil.com and let me know what you think about the offering. We can't wait to see you there. It's awesome. And for those listening, it is so easy to think that, hey, this is a pretty easy interface, I got this down. And in reality, you're underutilizing so many things in that tool that you can use. Someone like Ben is specialized in servicing these parts and pieces so that you don't have to. So that he can build his business within your business, and as you grow, he grows. Tell us how that model works from your side, Ben, because a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around the fact that, why would I pay someone to do this when I can just do it on my own?
It's a great question, because I ask myself that same question all the time. Like, that's typically what I do. I'm the kind of, I'm the person to dive into something and try to figure it out, rather than go through the expense of, why would I pay so-and-so to do X, Y, Z? And what you kind of lose is, okay, what is the time that it took to ultimately get there? And what could you have otherwise been doing with that time? And that's what we talk about a lot with potential clients that we work with. For us, we've literally worked with hundreds of merchants on optimizing their websites on Shopify, hundreds of merchants on executing email and SMS marketing via Klaviyo, hundreds of merchants on running advertising on Facebook and Instagram and Google and Pinterest and TikTok and all these places. And so
it's shocking they don't have all those in place already, right?
Right. So it's the type of thing where many businesses are just flat out not resourced to handle all those things. Yeah. But even if they have the resources, they just may not have that experience, and it takes time to build into that. And so during that time, would you rather, pay, let's say a junior level employee to learn, and then maybe in a year they're kind of at a place where, like, all right, they're doing okay, but still theoretically could be doing better? Or from day one, you just want to pay an agency team that has the experience, that knows what they're doing, to just sort of insert into what you're doing and be off and running. For the relative same cost of a junior level employee.
Honestly.
Right, exactly. And that's generally our pitch. I mean, it doesn't get much more difficult than that, to be honest. And, that model works for, some businesses, and for others it doesn't. That's totally fine. There's different ways that we ultimately work with folks, some of which are just, a short-term project, couple of months, do X, Y, Z, and then they shift to maybe managing that in-house or something. But But yeah, I mean, more often than not, the whole reason why I'm even in this business is because I kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. In that, okay, now I've been doing this for 10 years, and I have an understanding of how all of these different tools and services work. And there's it kind of creates this there's value in that knowledge. And that's ultimately why, not just us, but any agency, that's ultimately why we exist.
I love it. And honestly, man, it's like, for those listening, and even for you and I, Ben, we all fall into this mess of, oh, that's not that hard. I saw this YouTube video that I can pretty much imitate what they do, and I'm 90% there. Chances are you're like 9% there. And so you really need to trust the specialists. You really need to trust people like Ben to come in and provide the service that you need so that you aren't even thinking about that. But you do got to find someone that you can trust. So Ben, how do we now understand like who you work with and what you do for them. How have you been able to build and grow your brand and your reputation as someone who can help people that have this problem?
It's something that built very slowly over time. If you asked me 10 years ago, what would I be doing today? And I probably I wouldn't tell you, running a digital marketing agency.
Right.
I got started in this whole world having created a sunglasses brand, which
Nice.
back in 2013 was on Shopify. I chose to put it on Shopify, having a few different options in the market. At the time, it was sort of, I guess you could say, comparable to some degrees to some other players that were out there.
Yeah.
So I always say that I got lucky because the company was store number 41,000 or so on Shopify. And of course, now there's over 2 million merchants.
Wow.
So it was right before that rapid growth phase over the last 7-8 years. And, with that came, this domino, then that domino. So friend of a friend needs help building a website. They knew that I started my sunglasses company. And then, then became something where like, all right, let me, I've helped enough folks. I'll put an online portfolio out there, start to get a few different inquiries and leads from people I didn't know.
Right.
And then Shopify invited me to their partner program, and then they invite us to their experts program, and then to the Plus partner program, and then all the other, additional services in the ecosystem that we develop really strong partner relationships with and certifications for. On top of, and we talked about it before we started recording, another one of your guests is a former boss of mine. From Brandon Steiner from Steiner Sports. I worked at Steiner Sports for a really long time. For those of you folks that are out there that haven't heard of the company before, Steiner was the largest autographed sports memorabilia company of its kind in the world. And I was the company's first full-time hire dedicated to social and digital marketing. So
is that right?
I had this thing. Yeah. And I had this, business on the side that I had created. And then this agency sort of also kind of naturally forming. But at the same time, also getting that brand side experience of, running and growing social media for a company. And then, eventually my role shifting into overseeing not just social, but paid advertising and affiliate marketing and email marketing, and then eventually our entire e-commerce operation. And so that's awesome. Another key thing. Yeah. I mean, that's another key thing to what I talk about with potential clients is, not only have we worked with literally hundreds of merchants, but me personally, I've been there on the brand side of things. And I understand the ins and outs of what it takes to really do what they're doing. And so, to go back to that,
there's a lot of pressure.
Easy.
There's a lot of pressure on the inside guy who may know a lot, but they can't know everything about everything. And a lot gets put on their shoulders of like, hey, anything digital marketing, Ben's our guy, right? But the reality is you probably had your unique specialties that you were really good at, and all the other stuff you know a little bit about, but it is such a huge, huge play. I mean, digital marketing is not one or two little things. It is a lot of crap to know. And without working with an agency like your agency, it's hard to really know that you've got the right team in play.
Yeah, 100%. For a lot of brands, if they're large enough, they've built out a team of experts that kind of acts as an internal agency, we can kind of call it.
Right.
But most brands are not resourced to do that. And even those that theoretically could be are not the ones that still want to wait around and go through that process of hiring to find the right folks that can make that happen. And so that's where, again, this sort of agency model for us in terms of like what we do has really kind of fit and has been tremendous for me personally, for my career and my life, and what the last couple of years have meant in the growth of the business. And so
it's awesome.
I'm counting my blessings every day for what I get to do, and getting to do it working from home. This is pre-pandemic.
Sure.
that I got to do this, and I'm never going back to an office. So I'm really fortunate with what we get to do.
Awesome. I love it. I love to hear this because, again, I can't emphasize this enough. Niche down, become the master of your trade, and people will pay you a lot more money to fix their problems than they will trying to figure it out on their own. When people are confident that you have the solution that they need, it's so comfortable to hand that off to somebody. If you're unsure and you're trying to cover the whole gamut of digital marketing, people are going to second guess and say, how can they know all that? How can they really be that guy? But Ben, what are some challenges that you've seen in trying to grow your brand and really be that guy who's like, dude, all my clients are on Spotify. All my clients are doing this. This is what I do. Have you had some challenges in trying to build that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you have a business if you don't have challenges, for
Right?
sure. And some that are more within your control than others. So a good example of that, for example, we run advertising for clients as a service, and so
Right.
any advertising that we run is dependent on the platforms for which they are
Sure.
run to um, that dictates some of that success and performance. A
Sure.
couple of years ago, Apple made big waves in limiting third-party apps' abilities to
Yes.
track user actions when they are when a user is in that app and then navigates to a website, and then if they purchase something or add something to their cart or sign up for a form or something like that. The
Right.
biggest opponent of all the changes that they made was ultimately Facebook, but it affected really any app that uses any sort of
Oh, yeah.
pixel tracking. But for our business, it's tremendously impactful, and not in the most positive of ways, because it completely shifted the advertising world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Particularly with Facebook and Instagram. And so we had to make a very specific adjustment, not necessarily to the services that we were providing, because we already were, but like just kind of thinking about the various needs of merchants that we were working with and that we hope to work with.
Right.
Given the new challenges of what iOS 14.5 ultimately meant to their business.
Sure.
And if they weren't able to spend these dollars here in this bucket, then where else should we be concentrating on? And in some ways that led to I shouldn't say a rise, because it's been around
Right.
for 20, 25 years, but a re-emphasis on something like email marketing, your owned marketing, where you have more control over the reach. Theoretically, you still got to reach inboxes versus spam, but more control over the reach to your users as opposed to renting attention span in a news feed. And so that's right about the time where for our business, we built out our service offering a little bit differently on the owned marketing side. So for email, for SMS.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you bringing that up, to be honest.
Yeah.
I appreciate bringing that up because I think a lot of people are thinking that email is dead for some reason. Email is still, I mean, hands down, one of the most powerful tools you've got. When you've got an email, no algorithm can shake that. No, if you've actually obtained that email from your own lead generation or your own marketing and you didn't just buy a list from somebody, it is powerful. Those leads are powerful. They know who you are. They're interested in what you've got going on. Make sure you're capturing email and phone numbers. I mean, text is another powerful player that most people think, oh no, I just do Facebook and Google. No way. Look what they just did 3 or 4 years ago when that change happened. Killed a lot of marketing agencies, put them out of business because they weren't focused enough on their email and text marketing. So I appreciate bringing that up, Ben. Good point.
Yeah, 100%. It's been a really important piece to everything that we're doing. And look, Apple's in the midst of more changes that are going to be coming. That's going to affect how you track performance, and it's going to impact email. And there's always going to be these different things that come up that we certainly need to be prepared for, in the same way that clients need to be prepared for. And so that way we can be equipped as possible to ultimately handle it for them.
Ben, and you're trying to get this business going, and you've been doing this now for 10 years. You know what you're doing. You've got a pretty focused business. Tell us, is there somebody in your circle that's kind of been a mentor to you that helped you kind of see that this is where I fit, this is where I play, this is how I play in your business?
I think in a few different ways. There's been a lot of folks in my world, also agency owners or founders of an app development company, let's say, that integrates with
Yeah.
Shopify, or just folks that I've developed in my network and good relationships that I've got now. That I've had plenty of sort of industry chit chats and things talking about. How we've grown our business and what some of our challenges are, and kind of hearing the back and forth of similar or different challenges that other folks have helped to, at least for me, give clarity to
Awesome.
to a path of how we can grow and how we can continue to progress.
Awesome.
And so that's really helpful. I'd say for anybody listening, a good thing to think about, regardless of what it is that you do and what business that you're in. If you can surround yourself with folks that are like-minded in the sense of the sort of worlds that they operate in, even if it's
Right.
theoretically a direct competitor, let's say. I mean,
Yeah.
I have folks in my world that they are digital marketing agencies, and they
Right.
run advertising, and they build websites for folks. But on at a certain level, you understand that there's literally more than enough fish in the sea.
Oh my gosh.
There's plenty of business out there to be had, and so it's only a benefit to have good relationships with folks that kind of operate in the same circles as you.
I love it. I think it's so smart. That is great advice. For those listening, make sure you're tapping into a peer network of sorts, people that are doing what you do, people that are running a business like you. It is so valuable to get insights as to what the big challenges are. How do you face the upcoming Apple changes? How do you deal with what's happening on Google right now? Any algorithm changes? And what are you doing to capture leads? Like, there's so many tips and tricks that people are willing to share, because we want our industries to grow. And if you want your industry to grow, make sure you're not just hiding yourself away in your basement running your business. Make sure you're out there. Go to some trade shows, network with some people, get to know what's going on out there. Adds tons of value. Ben, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being here on the show today. And we're going to put all your contact info in the comments below. Ben, any last words of advice for our audience?
I appreciate you having me on. Certainly, if anybody was sparked by this conversation in terms of the world that I operate in, and you're looking to connect, follow me across Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn at Ben Zettler, BenZettler. Our
Awesome.
agency site is benzettler.com.
Love it.
Always looking to connect with folks. Whether you're a potential client that's looking for some help, or if you're a kid out of college looking for some guidance on what you want to do with your career, I'm always happy to lend some advice if I can.
Awesome. Ben, thank you so much for being here, buddy. Hey, what did you think of that interview? I loved it. Ben is just a great, humble guy. He's building and growing. He's like you. He has found a niche. He's found a product that he's really, really comfortable with, and he makes it so much better for his clients. He has taken that model of, holy crap, I got to figure this out for myself. And now he figures it out for other people. I love stories like this. This is likely like some of you. You started your business trying to scratch an itch that you had for yourself, and now you offer that to other people. I love stories like this. I love what's going on in his world. And for those of you that are trying to grow and scale, there's a lot of lessons to be learned here. Please listen, re-listen, and share this episode with someone that needs to hear it. Subscribe to support us so that we can continue to support you with awesome experiences that you'll hear about of people growing and scaling their companies. It's not easy, and it's hard to do alone. Just like he mentioned in his interview, there is a way to connect with other founders that are building businesses in the same space you are. Whether you're a founder or an operator, connectivity with other founders and operators is so important in your growth journey. We have an organization sponsoring this episode today called Captain's Council. CaptainsCouncil.com is a group of peers who are also founders and operators of businesses. And no, we're not talking about startup launch. We are talking about people operating businesses that are already existing, who are in that growth mode, the same place that you're in. We're not talking about launch ideas or business ideas. We're talking about very specific nitty-gritty things that you are dealing with right now in your business, that if you reached out to other people dealing with the same problems or have dealt with it in the last 3 years, chances are you're going to get through it a lot easier with a lot less nicks and scrapes and burns. So check out the Captain's Council today, captainscouncil.com. They are there for you because we are you. Founders helping founders in a way that will ignite your business growth. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Growth is Scaling podcast. We'll see you then.